The dining room looked exactly the way it always did when the family wanted to make a point. The good china was out, the crystal glasses, the centerpiece that only appeared on holidays, and apparently on nights when everyone had decided that Daniel Osei needed to be saved from himself. Daniel arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, which was the time his mother had specified in the text message she sent 3 days ago. Not a casual text, a formal one, the kind with complete sentences and a sign-off. He wore what he always wore, dark jeans, a plain gray crew neck, clean white sneakers. He had taken the subway from his place in the Millhaven district, the old industrial part of the city that his family had spent the better part of 2 years finding new ways to reference with barely concealed horror. He walked in, set his keys on the side table by the door, and took his usual seat at the far end of the dining room table. His mother, Diane, was already seated, adjusting her necklace the way she did when she was nervous. His older sister, Christine, was across from him in the kind of blazer that cost more than most people's rent. His brother Raymond sat beside her, his brand new watch sitting on his wrist like a small announcement, which Daniel suspected was the entire point of wearing it. And at the head of the table, as always, was their father, Victor Osei, still in his work shirt with the company logo on the breast pocket, which meant he had come straight from the office and also meant he wanted everyone to know that. "Daniel," his mother began, with the particular warmth that people use when they're about to say something that isn't warm at all. "We asked you here because we're worried." She glanced at Victor for support. Victor gave a short nod. "We're all worried." Daniel looked around the table slowly. He had known something like this was coming. There had been a series of smaller conversations over the past few months, comments at Sunday dinners, observations delivered with the careful packaging of concern. He had let them accumulate without responding, which in retrospect had probably given them the impression that they were landing somewhere significant. "What exactly are you worried about?" he asked, genuinely curious how they'd frame it. Raymond didn't wait. "You're 34 years old and you take the subway." He said it the way people say things they've been wanting to say for a while and have finally found an occasion for. "I saw you on the platform at Millhaven Station 2 weeks ago, in the rain, standing with everyone else waiting for the train." He picked up his glass. "It's not a good look, Daniel." Daniel's phone's screen lit up briefly on the table beside his hand, a notification from his building's security system. He glanced at it for exactly 1 second, saw what it said, and turned the phone face down. "The subway is efficient," he said calmly. "Gets me where I need to go." Christine leaned forward, her bracelet catching the chandelier light. "That's not the point, and you know it. You left Meridian Capital 4 years ago. 4 years, you were on track. You had a career, a trajectory, and you just walked away from it to do what? Private consulting that nobody can actually explain." She shook her head. "We're not judging you. We're trying to understand." Daniel thought about explaining. He had thought about explaining many times before, at many dinners, and each time he had decided against it for reasons that had made sense at the time. Partly because the explanation was complicated, partly because he had always been a private person about his work. And partly, if he was being truthful, because some part of him had found a strange peace in being underestimated by the people who were supposed to know him best. He had let it go on longer than he perhaps should have. His father cleared his throat. "I've made some calls," Victor said, using the tone he used in boardrooms. "Gordon Fairweather at Fairweather Asset Management has an opening for a senior analyst. Good firm, solid reputation. It's not what you were doing before, but it's a real position with real growth potential. I told him you'd reach out this week." Daniel picked up his water glass. "That's thoughtful, Dad." "Don't do that," Raymond said sharply. "Don't be polite about it, just say yes. It's a good opportunity and you need one." "I have work," Daniel said simply. "You keep saying that," Christine said, "but nobody knows what that means. What work? You live in the warehouse district. You dress the same every day. You take public transportation. Daniel, we've talked to people. The Fairweathers, the Nuyens from the club. Everyone asks about you and none of us have a good answer." Diane reached across the table and put her hand over his. "Sweetheart, we just want you to be okay. Your brother made partner last year. Christine's company is growing. And we just want the same kind of stability for you." She trailed off. The table was quiet for a moment. Daniel looked at his mother's hand on his. He thought about what he knew and what they didn't know and how long that particular gap had existed. He picked up his phone and checked the notification properly this time. He read it, set the phone back down, and looked up at the four of them watching him with their collective assembled concern. "I want to show you something," he said. His mother looked startled. "Show us something? Daniel, we have an entire evening planned. Your father researched the Fairweather position, we made notes." "I know," he said, already standing. "This will take 15 minutes, it's across the street." Raymond frowned. "Across the street is your warehouse." "Yes, we know what a warehouse looks like, Daniel. You know what you think it looks like," he said, moving toward the door. "Come on." There was a long pause at the table. The kind of pause where people exchange looks over someone's head as if that person cannot see them doing it. Then Victor set down his fork, straightened his shirt, and stood. The others followed. They crossed the quiet street together in the evening air, the five of them. Victor with his arms slightly crossed, Raymond checking his phone, Christine walking carefully in her heels on the old pavement, Diane holding her necklace like a small anchor. The building they approached was on the corner of Millhaven and Crane, a converted industrial facility that had been there since the 1940s. From the outside it was clean, modernized, with smooth gray cladding and discreet external lighting, but it was not flashy. It did not announce itself. Daniel had always appreciated that about it. He pressed his thumb to a small panel beside the main entrance. There was a quiet confirmation tone. The heavy door began to rise. Raymond said, behind him, "Is all the security really necessary for a storage space?" The door had risen about 4 feet when his mother made a sound. By the time it was fully open, and the interior lights had activated in their staggered sequence, all 4 of them had stopped moving. The space was enormous. Climate control. Before we continue the story, I just want to share something from my heart. Writing these stories has become more than just a hobby for me. It's something I truly enjoy and spend a lot of time creating for you all. Recently, I was looking through my channel analytics, and I noticed that many people who watch my videos don't usually leave a like or comment. I've never really been the type to ask for it, but the truth is, every like, comment, and subscribe helps these stories reach more people. It tells YouTube that this video is worth sharing, and that support genuinely helps this channel grow. So if you're enjoying the story so far, I'd really appreciate it if you take a second to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe. Your support means more than you know, and it helps me continue bringing more stories like this to life. Now, let's continue the story. Rolled, with polished concrete floors, recessed museum lighting, and the particular quality of silence that exists in places where extraordinary things are kept extremely carefully. And arranged across that space, on individual elevated platforms with precise professional spacing, was the most significant private collection of rare and classic automobiles in the Northern Hemisphere. Row after row of them. A midnight blue Ferrari from 1961. A pre-war Bugatti with its original fittings intact. A Lamborghini that had been unveiled at Geneva 18 months ago and had a current market value that most people would not believe if you told them. A McLaren F1 in silver, a car so rare and so sought after that the last time one sold publicly it had closed at over $20 million. A Porsche 917 in Gulf Racing livery. An Alfa Romeo 8C that automotive historians had written entire papers about. Victor made a sound that was not quite a word. A man in a well-cut dark suit appeared from the far end of the showroom and walked toward them across the polished floor. This was Patrick Osei, no relation, who had managed the collection for the past 3 years with an attention to detail that matched Daniel's own. "Mr. Osei, excellent timing," Patrick said. "The alpha documentation from the Turin authentication has just come through, and I have the final insurance recalibration from Lloyd's. They've updated the total insured value." He glanced briefly and politely at the family. "I can come back if you'd like some time." "No, stay," Daniel said. "What's the updated figure?" Patrick consulted his tablet. "With the Lamborghini now fully processed and the Bugatti collection factored in, Lloyd's has insured the collection at $460 million. That's a $42 million increase from last quarter." Raymond sat down on a low bench near the wall. He didn't appear to decide to sit down. His legs simply made the decision independently. Christine had both hands over her mouth, standing completely still in front of a yellow racing car that she probably could not identify, but could clearly see was not a normal object. Diane's hand was at her throat. Victor had not moved from just inside the door. His arms had uncrossed at some point without him seeming to notice. 460 million, Victor said. The words came out carefully, as if he was arranging them to make sure they were in the right order. In cars. In cars, Daniel confirmed. He walked slowly along the nearest row, hands in his pockets. The consulting practice advises high-net-worth individuals and sovereign collectors on rare automotive acquisitions and authentication. My minimum engagement fee is $1.5 million plus a performance percentage. Last year's revenue was just over $130 million. This year is tracking higher. The warehouses next door are restoration and research facilities. There are 5 connected buildings on this block. I own all of them. He stopped beside the Ferrari. This one is why Christie's has been calling. They estimate a minimum of $21 million at auction, possibly higher depending on the day. The collector market right now is particularly active. As if it had been timed, the sound of footsteps came from the side entrance. A woman in a sharp gray suit entered, followed by 2 colleagues carrying equipment cases. She saw the family, paused professionally, and addressed Daniel. Mr. Osei, we're set up for the preliminary assessment whenever you're ready. We also got confirmation from the magazine. They want to do the cover shoot here, not at the auction house. They feel the space tells a better story. She noticed the family again. I'm sorry, shall I come back? No, Daniel said. We're just finishing a different conversation. She nodded and moved toward the far end of the showroom with her colleagues. Diane found her voice. Daniel, how long has this been here? The collection has been building for about 8 years, the facility in this form for 4.5. 8 years, Christine said very quietly. This has existed for 8 years. Why didn't you tell us? Raymond asked. He wasn't being confrontational. He sounded genuinely, simply bewildered. Daniel considered the question. It was a fair question and it deserved a fair answer. Because every time I was around this family, I was told what I should be doing differently, what I was missing, what I was falling short of. There was never a version of those conversations where I was allowed to just be what I was. He said it without bitterness. He had moved past bitterness some time ago. It was easier to let you have your version and keep mine separate. The silence in the showroom was the particular kind that follows the saying of something true. Victor walked forward slowly, moving past his son, moving along the row of cars, looking at each one. He stopped at the Bugatti. He looked at it for a long time. When he turned around, his posture was different from how it had been all evening. The boardroom quality was gone. He just looked like an older man standing in a room where he had been comprehensively wrong about something. I arranged a job interview, he said. He meant it as an acknowledgement, not a defense. You don't need a job interview. No, Daniel said. I don't. Raymond stood up from the bench. His watch caught the light and he looked at it on his own wrist for a second, which was interesting to observe. The Rolex, he said. Is it worth anything next to all this? The Rolex is fine, Daniel said simply. He had no interest in ranking things. That had always been his family's game, not his. Christine turned from the car she'd been standing in front of. Is there anything we can do? Anything you need? She was asking carefully, aware that the landscape had shifted entirely and unsure of the new terrain. I don't need anything, Daniel said. That's kind of the whole point. He looked at all 4 of them standing in the middle of his life's work, surrounded by $460 million worth of machines that he loved with a quiet and absolute devotion, and felt something settle in him that he hadn't fully expected to feel. Not triumph, something quieter than that. Just a clean, complete sense of being fully known at last, even if the knowing had arrived sideways and required a warehouse full of impossible cars to accomplish it. Patrick approached again, professionally discreet. The Christie's team is ready when you are. Also, the car transport from the Rotterdam facility has cleared customs. The 3 pre-war Mercedes will arrive Thursday. Good, Daniel said. He looked at his family. You're welcome to stay and watch the assessment if you want. They're evaluating 7 cars tonight. It takes a few hours, but it's interesting if you've never seen it done. None of them moved toward the door. They stayed, all 4 of them. Victor stood beside his son in front of the Ferrari for a long time without speaking, which was its own kind of conversation. Diane found a chair that Patrick brought over for her and sat watching the Christie's teamwork with the focused attention of someone trying to absorb something enormous in real time. Christine asked Patrick 3 careful questions about the collection management process and listened to the answers properly. Raymond sat back down on the bench and looked at his phone once, then put it back in his pocket and didn't take it out again. The assessment took 2.5 hours. When it was done, when the Christie's team had photographed and documented and departed, and when Patrick had locked up the restoration wing and said his goodnights, Daniel walked his family back across the street. They stood for a moment outside his parents' house. The neighborhood was quiet. Somewhere a few blocks over, the subway ran its late service, the low, steady sound of it just barely audible through the evening air. "I still take the subway," Daniel said. He wasn't explaining himself, he was just saying it. "I like it. It moves through the city at ground level, you see things. I've had real conversations on that train that have led to real business relationships. I've also just sat and thought." He looked at his father. "Success doesn't have to be visible to be real, Dad. You taught me that, actually. I just took it more literally than you intended." Victor nodded once. It was a different kind of nod than the one he had given at the start of the evening. Less certain, more honest. "Come for dinner next week," Diane said. "Not an intervention, just dinner." "I'll be here," Daniel said. He turned and walked back toward the subway entrance 2 blocks away, hands in his pockets, and as he walked he checked the notification he had received at the very start of the evening, the one he had turned face down on the dining table. It was from Christie's, a preliminary estimate on the collection's 3 highest value pieces. The number was extraordinary. He put his phone back in his pocket and kept walking. The night air was warm. The city moved around him the way it always did, indifferent and enormous and full of things happening in buildings that didn't advertise what they contained. He went down the subway steps, tapped his card at the turnstile, and waited on the platform with everyone else.